Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? So glad you made it here. Wherever you are, however you consume your content, I'm so glad you've made it right here on Dauntless Marketing Radio, episode 2. And I just first and foremost wanted to thank everybody that supported me, supported the podcast. I felt you guys' love through all the comments, the emails, people just reaching out, telling me, attaboy, people giving me suggestions on how I can make the podcast better to be able to provide more value for you guys. And I take those words, and will try my best to use that information to make the podcast as great as it possibly can be. I also wanted to let you guys know that word is getting out about Dauntless Marketing Radio. Let me share my screen really quick and show you all the places that between the start of this podcast and now in the recording of episode 2, where you can go to find the podcast. First of all, Anchor is the platform that I chose to get the podcast out there. But Anchor is such a phenomenal tool and product that it distributes your podcast to other platforms where podcasts can be found. So it's not only can Dauntless Marketing Radio be found on Anchor, but it can also be found on Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, and Breaker. So all the places that you can find podcasts and subscribe to podcasts that you're interested in, Anchor has been so great at getting these podcasts out so you can find these podcasts as well. So I'm so thankful for Anchor. I use their logo on my logo for the podcast because I'm so grateful and thankful for all that they've done to distribute this podcast to all the places that they can be found. So thank you so much, Anchor, and thank you as the listener and watcher of these podcasts. So without further ado, let's go to episode 2 of this podcast. Sell whether you believe or not. And I say that, and I think I referenced this in episode 1, that it's not necessary to totally believe in your product or totally know your product to sell it. It's like, and I didn't believe that at first. Going through all the things that I went through to sell products, I thought that I had to know those products intimately to be able to sell them to somebody else. And does it help? Sure. It helps to have a working knowledge of the things that you sell, but it's not totally necessary. And a mentor of mine really showed me that, unequivocally showed me. And I wanted to kind of tell you guys about that story, and kind of share the things that I've learned from that. So I'll go back. I'll stop sharing now and go back to this view here. So about 3, maybe 4 years ago, I was in a position that is probably very similar to many of you out there. It's like I have a good job, and I had a good job then as well, obviously. And I was making good money, but because of the bad financial mistakes of my past and my youth, it's like I was paying for them. I was paying a significant price for them. So it's like, even though I had money coming in, I had a lot of money going out for bills, paying off creditors, paying off of those mistakes that I made in my youth. And because of that, it's like I paid my bills. I was comfortable from that standpoint, but I had very little left to put into savings. After I paid all my bills, paid my creditors, paid my tithings at church, I had very little left. And that situation went on for a while, and I can very distinctly remember the point where it all changed. at that time, about 3 or 4 years ago, I remember going to the park, and I was with my girlfriend at the time. And, it's like I paid all my bills like I usually do. And then I had a little bit left over. So, me and my girlfriend at the time went on a dollar menu date. And, we got the little cheeseburgers, and, we didn't get fries, and we got the big pops like this one because they were $1, and, it's like we were at the park, and I can remember that, it was a pretty sunny day, a little bit of clouds, but for the most part, it was a pretty beautiful day. But everything else, there were storms. My financial situation, the situation with my girlfriend at the time, not having money in my pocket to just be able to do basic things, like going to the movies or going out to dinner. It caused stormy situations in every other part of my life. And I knew that something had to change, but I didn't have the skills or the know-how to know what to change to make it happen. Like I said, I was making good money from my job, but it wasn't enough. I was making decent money, with side hustles here and there, but it wasn't enough. And I knew something had to change. And I noticed that there was an older gentleman sitting on the park about maybe, I don't know, maybe 50 yards away. And I noticed that he had a book that he was reading. And it's like this was a guy that just emanated success. You could feel the success emanating off of him. And I was like, that is a guy that figured it out. That's a guy that solved the Rubik's Cube. That's the guy that figured out all of the secret clues that was necessary to win and be successful in this game called life. And man, I was like thinking, man, I got to know what this guy knows. I got to figure out what these secrets are too. And I start, it's like I told my girlfriend at the time, hold on, I want to try to talk to this guy. And as I moved towards him, a big, fancy, really expensive limo pulled up. And the older gentleman closed the book and headed towards the limo. And I knew he was about to go. And I knew that my opportunity to learn what he learned was about to go too. So I did something crazy. It's like, in some places this would get you shot, but I ran to this limo. And as the driver of this limo was getting ready to close the door, I stuck my hand in between the door, smashed it, probably yelled out a few cuss words because it hurt. And the guy looked at me like I was crazy because I was doing something crazy. And I told him, look, I'm sorry. I just had to meet you, sir. It's like, my name's Lamar, and you have obviously figured out this thing called life. And it's like, you're obviously so successful. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you do? What have you learned to figure things out? And, the older gentleman had a wry smile on his face. And he said, young man, I'm gonna give you the secret sauce. Okay. What I want you to do is read this book. Okay. Get this book, read this book, read it for 20 minutes every single day, 20 minutes every day, and apply what you've learned from that 20 minutes for 40 minutes a day. Do that every single day for a year. And I promise you, you will not recognize yourself after that year. And I was just blown away. And I had no reason to doubt what he was saying because he was clearly successful. I was not. And I had to figure that out. I had to learn what this guy learned. So I did it. It's like I never saw the older gentleman again, but I got the book and I read the book for 20 minutes a day. I applied what I learned from the book for 40 minutes a day. And after a year, after a year, he was absolutely right. It changed my life. I was able to provide myself a financial foundation for everything that I wanted to build from there. All of the ambitious things that I'm thinking about now is possible because I listened to this older gentleman that I met at the park and got this book, read the book, applied what I learned from the book. And it was that simple. And life did change for me. Now I'm not a millionaire or anything. I'm nowhere near where I'm going to be, but all the things that I want is possible because of the advice that older gentleman gave me in a few minutes in the park. And you know what's cool is that the author of this book, Pamela Yellen from Bank on Yourself, she found out my story, from me telling people on social media, telling people, and advising people and talking to people and letting them know the things that you can learn from this book. Pamela Yellen figured out my story and reached out to me and knew about the success that I got from the book, knew that I was teaching other people the concepts from the book, and she was impressed. And I'm here to tell you guys now that Pamela Yellen, from listening to that story and that what came about from that story, she wants to offer all the people that are listening to this story now just a phenomenal offer. First of all, she wants to be able to get this book in your hand so you can learn those same concepts. Usually this book is like right around $26. She's offering it right now for the people that are listening to this podcast at half price, $13. Okay. $13, you can get your hands on a book that changed my life, changed that older gentleman's life, and everyone that has gotten this book has gotten a benefit from this book. So for half price, you can get this book, $13, less than $13, $12.97. But not only that, she is, for just the listeners of this podcast, she's doing a special workshop that she, and trust me, she's pretty good at what she does. She charges thousands of dollars for workshops. For you listening to this podcast right now and getting the book, she's going to offer an online webinar workshop absolutely free. If you act now, you do it before the end of the day today, before midnight. If you get this book, you'll have access to be able to get onto that webinar and get personal training from Pamela Yellen herself. So much more than what anything I can do. And she's offering that because she was impressed that the concepts that she teaches in this book really does what the book cover says. Life-changing secret to growing and protecting your financial future. And that's what I've done. And that's why I'm in a position to be able to do all the things that I'm wanting and willing to do right now, providing that foundation financially so that everything else can grow. And I just want to tell you guys that being authentic in this podcast, as I told you I would be, that story wasn't true. None of it. None of that story was true. There's concepts in the story that were true. Somebody came up with the story that wasn't me. I kind of changed around some details or whatnot. But there was no older gentleman. There was no dollar menu date. There was no hand getting shoved into, a limo, luckily, because I don't want bruises. And I have never read this book, never cracked it open. I will eventually. It looks like a good book. I think there's some things in here that will really help, but I've never cracked this book open, never read it, but I've just sold it to you. I believe now. I know that this podcast is just starting, and there'll be a lot of people that listen to this episode in the future more so than right now. But I believe that there were people that were waiting on the details on how to pick that book up. And you know how I know? Because my mentor did the exact same thing to me, and his name is Stephen Larson. Steve Larson, just a phenomenal marketer, taught me a lot of concepts about marketing. And, he did that same book story to me and a crowd of other people. And I couldn't wait to pull out my credit card and buy a book that he never read, that he never cracked open. And I know that, at least if I did my job right, there's other people out there that were about to do the same thing. Oh, Life-Changing Secrets, $13. I can get that. Where do I sign up? Because that's where I was. That's where I was because of Steve Larson's ability to sell in the market and to provide an offer that was irresistible based on the story and not the product. And I hope that you guys got something out of that there was a lesson there, because that was the lesson that profoundly changed my marketing and selling life. That I don't have to know everything about a product. I don't have to be passionate about the product. I need to be passionate about people. I need to be passionate about solving people's problems. And when you do that, you change people's lives for the better. You change your own life for the better. And I go back to that quote by Zig Ziglar that goes something like, if you help other people get what they want, you can get everything that you want. And I'll say it again. You help other people get what they want, you can get everything that you want. Thank you so much. I love you guys. And I'm so happy and thankful again that you found yourself to this podcast. And I will leave you with, it's time. It's time to rise up and change everything. Thank you so much. I love you guys and have a great day.